Will home run number 46, a literal all-time single-season record for his position, be enough for Dan Harris to put Salvador Perez as his number one catcher in 2022? We will find out in the Tuesday, September 21st edition of Leading Off, presented by Manscaped. I am your host, Brendan Tuma, and Dan, we will start with that question.
No, actually, I've dropped him now down to 6 in my catcher rankings. I'm considering putting him behind people who aren't even catcher eligible just to make a statement. I refuse to. I mean, he probably will be Tuma, but I will have 0 shares. I'd like to ask you, will you have shares of Salvador Perez next year? And if you do, where do you think you will have to take him in order to get him on your team?
I was going to say it is really fun to, joke about this, the running bit that's been going on. But I do think kind of just like the correct answer is kind of boring. Like, yeah, we'll rank him as the top catcher, but neither you or I will be recommending drafting him because I have no idea what his ADP is going to be. Like, but God, I could see it in like the 5th round, 6th round.
Yeah.
Maybe even earlier.
I think fantasy managers are pretty good about not jumping, off a cliff for catchers. I think they, even with Real Muto, seemingly having such an incredible advantage over the position coming into this year, nobody was like running after him in like the 3rd round or anything like that. So people will probably be cautious with him. And this just came Perez, I think I had him as my number 2 catcher coming into the year, but this came out of nowhere so much. I think people will probably be cautious, but yeah, I won't be biting, not for a long time at the very least. So you and I will be in a league. I guess this will be capped in that league that we were in together. But yeah, I won't have any shares of him next year, and I'll just watch him hit 55 and still be like, he's not my number 1 catcher.
Before we move on from Salvi, though, I do want to pick your brain on this because I don't know if I'm going crazy with this. I mentioned yesterday it's similar to kind of like Kelce in fantasy football, where when you go up against an opponent and you have Travis Kelce and they have, just low end tight end 1, you have such a positional advantage. Salvador Perez, as of this morning, has 15 more homers than the next highest catcher, 15 more runs than the next highest catcher, and 43 more RBIs. That's all over the number 2 ranked catchers. Not to mention, if you're going up against someone or in a roto league who has the number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 catchers. Does that same logic apply, or am I trying to do apples to oranges here?
No, it does. But that sort of, if Salvador Perez was the Travis Kelce of catchers, then yes, then I would draft him very early and understand. If it was like Piazza back in the day where it was just so very, such a dominant force at a thin position like that, it is tight end and catcher, certainly. The difference is catchers, nobody performs quite like Kelce as a catcher, except for right now with what Perez is doing, because he's also batting 276, 115 RBI, nonsensical numbers. If I knew that this was going to happen again or had any remote confidence that it would, then yeah, man. I mean, we're talking a 1st, 2nd rounder. Absolutely. The difference is, again, you can bank on Kelce. There's no way you can bank on Salvi Perez doing this again. So it is an apt comparison. It's just far less predictable for a catcher in baseball.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. Next year we can't expect it, but this year it has happened.
It has
a bit of a lighter slate overall in baseball last night. Mondays are usually like that. How was your Monday, Dan?
You know how my Monday was, Brendan Tuma. It was fine as a whole, generally speaking. I will say that I have 1 league left that I really care about, and it's a head-to-head points league, and I'm in the finals, and it's one of these terrible, terrible teams that scraped into the playoffs with like the last seed and has now just gone on this stupid run because of random things that are going right. And this week I'm facing a juggernaut, of course, and I'm just starting all sorts of crap, throwing crap against the wall. I started John Lester last night. I was going to text you because he looked terrible early and he didn't strike anybody out. And you and I have talked about Lester, but he came through and he got the win. I also have Freddie Peralta. So one of those guys was good. I started Eric Fetty and he, was okay and should have gotten the win. But as you well know, at the very last moment, because I was texting you and Mayor, I benched Jazz Chisholm, who was in my utility spot. Not even like I have Jorge Polanco, who I can't bench. I have Corey Seager, who I can't bench at this point. And I benched Jazz Chisholm because Mayer had him lower in the quick grades than Frank Schwindel, who I ultimately went with. So if I don't win, I will be ending Mayer's time on this show, and you will never again be able to mention his name.
Jazz Chisholm got off to a great start on Monday. He went 2 for 4 with 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored, a stolen base. We talked about the Marlins matchups as of late last week. He's now up to 17 homers and 22 steals. Again, another one of these, I don't want to maybe use the word underrated, but we just don't know where he's going to rank in 2022, but one of these power speed guys. And there's Mike Mayer.
He should be. The thing is, I don't usually blindly listen to Mayer's quick grades. I think it's incredibly useful, and he does a phenomenal job. I always check him out. And usually it kind of jibes with what I'm thinking. And I don't know. I think there was a pretty big disparity between Chisholm and Schwindel this week. But anyway, I know everybody listening really cares about my league. I know that's what really people want to hear about. So I will just say with Chisholm, this has been an awesome season, man. Like, it really has been. There's a guy I'm going to buy the inflation that we're going to see next year, which we are, if for no reason than because of his name. Like, that's not even a joke. Like, people are going to be like, Jazz Chisholm is the type of guy I want on my team. Young, cool, awesome sounding name. I'm all in on him. I don't care. I will pay the price that it's necessary to get this guy on my team.
We're 7 minutes into the show, and in my opinion, we haven't even talked about the number one story of the night. This is the game that I was watching in between weaseling my way out of Grey's Anatomy episodes with the roommates, and that was Robbie Ray versus Shane Baz. Baz, the rookie making his MLB debut for Tampa Bay, went 5 innings, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, a 5-0 strikeout to walk ratio. He threw just 65 pitches and got 15 whiffs. It could have been a much, much, much bigger outing if they let him go. But obviously, that was probably never in the cards. What did you see from Baz last night?
So incredibly impressive, like beyond impressive, really, for this. Because, we see these guys come up and, he's incredibly highly touted. So he's at like the top end of this. But it was somebody who, still you see these guys start and you don't, you want to take a wait and see approach. And you can't do that with him right now, because if you're going to start him, you got to start him right away. But you mentioned it, the 15 whiffs on 65 pitches. I hope everybody understands just 15 whiffs is good on a normal outing. On 65 pitches, incredible. I mean, it's hard not to be incredibly excited. You throw him out there, certainly when he gets his next start, but everything he did yesterday was absolutely impressive.
Yeah, I think I listen to a lot of fantasy baseball podcasts in addition to this one. And I, just on Twitter, you see a lot of the Discord going on. I didn't see any, fantasy analysts really banging the drum, start Baz in this, start Baz. And I think it ultimately ended up fine if you didn't use him. Like 5 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts. He didn't get the win. Obviously, there was no quality start. So I don't think, necessarily feel bad for that. He is going to get, if they do stick with the 6-man rotation, he's going to get the Astros again next week. I still don't think you need to use him for that. The workload is going to be limited, but this is good scouting report to know heading into next year.
Absolutely. I mean, it's much more relevant for next year. There are not that many people paying attention right now, but he'll get a lot of buzz, sort of. But it's something where if you watch him now, why there's hype, and everything that at least you saw last night, even his poise and just, general command, it's something to get excited about.
I did have FOMO in his first inning. He went behind 2-0 on Vlad and then just threw 2 sliders that Vlad swung and missed at, and then elevated for like a 99-mile-per-hour fastball. It was incredible. One last Shane Baz note. He was the player to be named later that the Rays got in the Austin Meadows, Tyler Glasnow for Chris Archer trade. And on the same day that Baz got called up, the Rays, who now have Archer again, moved him to the 60-day IL, ending his season.
I just don't trade with the Rays. Like, don't just take some time off and rethink things no matter what.
On the other side was Robbie Ray, who went just 4 2/3 innings and gave up 3 runs. We talked about this. I thought this could have been his big Cy Young moment if he was dominant in this outing. I mean, what are you gonna like? It's a bummer, but you still have Robbie Ray for a 2-start week. He's still awesome. Just a bummer of an outing.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do anyway? Like, this is what it is. Didn't have a great day. Still awesome. Just write it off. And, even, a bad day from him, it doesn't kill you, right? I mean, 3 earned runs, I think it was. It's not like it's not a Kyle Hendricks, as I like to call it. So I stinks, but obviously he's been phenomenal and doesn't kill you here.
I went deep on Ray yesterday. Caitlin McGrath of The Athletic had a really nice profile on him about what changed from last year to this year. In there, I thought there was a fun note about the tight pants. You know how he has those like really tight pants that
yes,
Twitter loves discussing. He said the reason for those is he's wearing the same size pants as last year, but this past offseason, he went really hard in the gym, and now he's just a bigger guy and they fit him tighter. And he said some of that, working out in the off season is what has helped his increased velocity, which is the best of his career so far. So good piece by Caitlin McGrath of the Athletic on Robbie Ray, if you're interested.
That's great to know. You'd feel like you would do the same thing that someone would do if they, gained weight, which is, I don't know, get a bigger size of pants, but whatever, man. Tight pants working for him. Fantastic. I go the opposite. I go baggy. I wear Snuggies. Like, that's how I would roll. So as I continue to not put on muscle, but instead put on fat, that's how I'm going to handle that.
A couple other pitchers who let us down on Monday night. Tristan Mackenzie, 4 1/3 innings, 9 hits, 7 earned runs. He still allowed just 1 walk. And again, the control was the biggest thing for Mackenzie early in the year when he was struggling. It was because all the walk. So it wasn't the control that he was struggling with on Monday, but he allowed 3 homers. Obviously, that's going to doom any pitcher. He had not allowed a single homer in any of his past 5 starts. The velocity was down a tad. He's a skinny guy. Maybe he's tiring a bit, but this is, again, just kind of similar to Robbie Ray, just bad timing for Mackenzie to have not one of his best starts.
Everything is really magnified, right, at this moment, because you have one bad start and, every little thing you do. He had been so incredible coming into this game. 3, 2, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1. Those were the earned runs allowed over his last 7 starts, I believe. So this really came out of nowhere, especially because it was against the Royals. But I mean, I hate to put it like this, but you live by the Mackenzie, you die by the Mackenzie. Like, that's what it is. I certainly would have started him in here. I would have recommended him, but just one of these things. Again, the biggest thing, as you mentioned, Tuma, is no walks. He had 1 walk. That's what he's had, 1 or fewer walks again since he started this run. That's all you really care about with a guy like Mackenzie. So who knows? Maybe he's wearing down. Maybe it's just a bad start. That happens with everybody. So that is what it is.
He does have a second start this week. So if you're in weekly lineups, there's a chance for him to salvage the performance. Someone who does not have a second start this week, and we knew that going in, and now I'm curious what's going to happen with the rest of the season. And the Peanuts and the Cracker Jacks are talking about him in the chat a bit.
Yeah.
Is Carlos Rodon. 3 innings, 2 hits, 3 runs, only 2 earned. Did have 6 strikeouts. 58 pitches in the final 2 innings. That's not good. And the last fastball that he threw was only 89.4 miles per hour. It came out after the game that he was dealing with renewed soreness in his pitching arm. The White Sox had already said coming into the start that it was going to be his second to last start of the regular season. As we've talked about, the White Sox are clearly in the playoffs, so they're trying to get their postseason rotation set and everything. Now I'm not sure what's going to happen with Rodon.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to there's no way that you're going to rely on him even if he makes another start at this point during the season, because almost certainly it would be like a 2 or 3 inning variety just to get him a tune-up. They obviously have Lance Lynn. They have Lucas Giolito. You've got Dylan Cease. You can get by with Dallas Keuchel if you need to. I wonder whether or not if Rodon is really dealing with the soreness, whether they're going to push him at all to start a game, even in the postseason. He might be more of a reliever at this point. But from a fantasy standpoint, how can you possibly rely on him, even if he gets another start? So for the most part, for all intents and purposes, I think Rodon is just done in terms of anything fantasy for the rest of the season.
Not good. You always want to be feeling your best entering the playoffs, and us in the Peanuts and the Cracker Jacks, we always want to be feeling our best overall. That's why you got to use the Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped. What makes this trimmer different than all the other trimmers? A new multifunction on-off switch can engage a travel lock created for people who like to travel, and the Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. Leading off listeners can get 20% off and free shipping by using the code leading off at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, code leading off. Some news and notes. Bryce Harper did not
stop. Do you wait for like 5 seconds because you expect me to say something after your Manscaped read? I'm just wondering because I need to know, because it's just me and you the rest of this week. Mayor's basically been banned from this show because of the quick grades. You and I are doing this together. I need to know whether the lengthy pause after the Manscaped read is waiting for me to make a comment or do something, or whether it's just the awkward Tuma. That's how you transition.
As someone who produces podcasts behind the scenes, so I'm like handling the audio, there's nothing worse than when two people are talking over each other. And so I go out of, I try to incorporate that pause just to make sure if you have something to say, I want you to be able to say it. And if not, then I can carry on with the analysis.
I think your pauses are great. And I know exactly what you're doing because you have produced all of my shows basically since the inception. But the pause after the Manscaped read is the equivalent of like the Grand Canyon of pauses. It's not like I'm going to give Dan a second to pop in. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows. People know you really, everybody knows that you need me to say something. So from now on, Tuma, I want you to assume that I'm going to say something after your Manscaped read. And the one thing I will say is my favorite thing is how early now I can guess when you're transitioning to the Manscaped read. Like when I'm like, okay, is this an intro to a player? Or is this an intro to a Manscaped read? That's sort of the guess. In fact, what we should do is clip every one of your Manscaped reads and sort of say, put out like just a statement and have the option be, was this A, Tuma's intro to Manscaped, or B, Tuma's intro to, whatever, Tristan Mackenzie or something like that. So that's an off-season project. But I'm going to stop talking now. You can jump in the second I finish this sentence.
Wonky Penguin notes could have talked about how smooth Jazz was and led that into when you're looking to be smooth. That is a good one. And then, yeah, you put it up. Lawnmower Man 4.4 notes that I need the positive criticism. This is a thing for my generation, from our bosses. We need that positive feedback.
Is that true? Is this like a millennial thing that you guys need? Are you a millennial even, or are you like younger than a millennial?
I think I am. Maybe I'm a little on the young side for it, but that is definitely like a joke that people make about people my age about always needing that positive feedback in the work.
Well, you're doing a great job, Brendan. Okay. Nice work today.
Okay. News and notes. Bryce Harper did not homer last night. Thank goodness, in terms of the Joe. Actually, this was the best of both worlds for you, Dan, because Bryce Harper didn't homer, but he's now the favorite for the National League MVP award, according to FanDuel Sportsbook. Yeah,
this is excellent. I didn't joke about that. Like I do gamble and I do betting podcasts and I certainly, but I don't risk my children's college fund. I'm, whatever, just for fun. But I did fire when Joe correctly noted that he was plus whatever it was 3,000 to win. And then he had a huge day. And then Joe and I agreed that we would fire the next day when he was plus 1,800. So this is not like I'm going to win enough to, I don't know, if he wins, to take my wife on an anniversary dinner and not feel like bad about the fact that I can't get the kids a new Marvel, Lego set or something like that. But it's weird to me, Brendan, because I mean, he does have more WAR than Fernando Tatis Jr. and he's having a phenomenal season, but the Phillies probably aren't going to make the playoffs, right? I mean, do you think if you were an NL MVP voter, as good as he has been, and really, I didn't even look at his numbers until recently, where I was like, holy crap, no wonder Joe is leading the home run call. Would he be your MVP vote in the National League?
I think so now, yes. I care a lot about like the history of the MVP and the Cy Young Awards and everything. And this season, more than ever, I plan to put myself in my office here and shut the door and not talk to anyone for 4 hours until I go through all the stats and all the advanced analytics and all the storylines to figure it out. I really do care about the history of this stuff. So I will have an answer for you after the season ends. But as of now, I do think Harper is the MVP.
I'm looking at his WAR, at least over on Fangraphs. He's 6.3. Vladdy is 6.8. Marcus Semien 6.4. And Fernando Tatis Jr. is 5.9. I mean, Tatis Jr., he's only played 118 games. I know they're falling. I know they're yelling at each other. But, 39 homers, 25 steals. Harper's got 33 homers, 13 steals. He does have a 427 OBP and a 620 slugging percentage. Just an awesome season for the guy. And again, I'm going to Sizzler if he wins. So let's hope so.
Okay, moving on to some other storylines. Wander Franco could return from the IL on Friday. That is great news. He will be resuming his historic 39 game on base streak. Andrew Kittredge was placed on the IL by the Rays. He's been their best reliever and was getting a lot of save chances. I tried to come up with, who can we recommend for saves? It's Tampa. There's 10 days left. It's not even worth it. Willie Adames was reinstated from the IL. He went 0 for 4. Luis Severino was reinstated from the IL. This was kind of came out of nowhere, and they haven't. So he's only pitched 12 innings since the start of 2019. He had Tommy John in 2020, multiple setbacks, yada, yada, yada. And they haven't. I kind of think he's just going to pitch out of the bullpen. They haven't really said what the role's going to be, but that would have to make the most sense.
I agree. I can't imagine that he's going into the starting rotation right now. But when that came across the wire, Tuma, when I saw it on our news desk, I was like, what? When was this supposed to happen? But there's just no way that he is, stretched out enough and that they would trust him right now, given they're in a pennant race. I do think it's just bullpen depth, so nothing really fantasy relevant.
Some really good news. Chris Bassett threw a 30-pitch bullpen on Monday, and it does sound like he has a chance at rejoining the Athletics rotation later this week. Remember, he had that really scary, he was hit by a comebacker in the head earlier this summer.
Yes, good to see just from a real baseball perspective. I had a very nice season.
Couple pitching standouts that I just wanted to mention. You mentioned John Lester picked up his 200th career victory as the Cardinals won their 9th in a row. It's still like, it's definitely obviously, very smokes and mirrors. If you need possibly some low ratios, maybe, but I would be far more interested at this point in John Means, who was fantastic against the Phillies, probably the rare Orioles pitcher you don't want to make a home run call against. And I want to note, I thought this was really interesting. He has a chance to join Dave McNally from 1968 as the only pitchers in Orioles history with a sub-1 whip and at least 150 innings. So Dan was a veteran of fantasy baseball by the time that season rolled around.
Yeah, that brings back some memories for me. What's funny, Tuma, I didn't actually even realize that because he had gone through such a rough stretch that he had kept that whip under 1. That's phenomenal. I love Means, obviously back healthy. So it's great to see. Hopefully they can build more pitchers around him and the Orioles can compete given their offense.
I need to move on to some of these hitters to note on because I do think they could be important for people down the stretch. Yoshi Tsutsui is someone we have not talked about. He is on the Pirates now. He was on the Rays, then the Dodgers. Now he's on the Pirates. He had 2 more hits last night, including a homer. Since arriving in Pittsburgh in mid-August, he has 8 homers in 99 plate appearances. He's hitting .306 with a .394 on base percentage, 179 WRC plus during that time. I just think at this point, like, he's so hot. Especially if you're in a daily lineup league, if you need someone, plug him in and just ride it.
Sure. First of all, grade A pronunciation, Tuma, like really well done. I mean, he batted 120 with the Dodgers and 167 with the Rays. But you are right. We are at the end of the season. I don't care what your name is. I don't care what we've done in the past. If you have a 2-game hitting streak and good matchups, I'm good to go with you. So yeah, whatever. Ride him.
Star Platinum notes that the 69 Orioles had 4 20-game winners. I want to say it was the 1971 Orioles. I do not think it was the 1969. It was either 70 or 71.
All I know is I can't remember who the 69 Orioles lost to in the World Series. If anybody can look that up and let me know, because I remember celebrating my 75th birthday. It was very exciting times back then.
Jesus Sanchez hit another homer. Again, we talked about Jazz at the top. The matchups for the Marlins have been really strong lately. Sanchez now has 9 homers since August 28th. He's a guy who, some projections, I think we should at least project him for 30 homers next season. Who knows what the batting average will be, but the power is definitely there. And then another young guy, Keibert Ruiz, catcher for the Nationals, had 3 hits for the 3rd time in 4 games. That's noteworthy because he was an offensive catcher coming through the system. So if you need to stream a catcher down the stretch, but again, he'll be someone who would probably be ranked towards the back end of, startable catchers who could have value in 2022.
Yeah, he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. It's catcher. Anybody with a pulse is decent. But yeah, I mean, it's good to see him now after he obviously got off to a slow start after that trade.
Pickles asks Longo or Tsugo. I like them both, but we are not going away from Evan Longoria on this show. Adam Duvall, last note, Adam Duvall hit a 483-foot homer, which was the 4th longest by anyone this season. He has 37 homers, a National League leading 107 RBIs, and he could become the first player ever to hit 40 homers, knock in 100 runs, and post a sub 300 on base percentage. Amazing.
Nuts. Absolutely crazy. Wait, Joey Gallo has 37 home runs?
Does he?
Am I making that up? Am I looking at somewhere wrong? Somebody look that up because that can't be right. What am I looking at? It says Joey Gallo has 37 home runs, and I must have gone to Bizarro World. Somebody confirm this for me because I'm looking at the leaderboard, and Adam Duvall is 37, and he's tied with Joey Gallo, and Mayer is confirming that. And that's the craziest thing that I've ever heard, Tuma. Like, did you know that? Did you know that Joey Gallo had 37 home runs?
It doesn't shock me. I know he had that crazy streak in the middle of June.
He went on that crazy streak, but for the most part, I've kind of been like Joey Gallo. I start him in a league, and I just haven't thought about him. I know he's been hot, crazy. Sorry, very sorry for the tangent. Yeah, 5 last week. I get it. I know he gets hot, but 37. If you were like Joey Gallo is 6th in the league in home runs, that's crazy. But it's tied with Adam Duvall. So welcome to 2021.
I think the Duvall leading the NL in RBIs is just so nuts. Who projected that before the season?
Right. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, and by the way, Joey Votto, league winner, hit 2 more home runs last night.
This is why you have to be in the home run calls, because you've got to just call Joey Votto every night. Go ahead.
Onto the home run updates. It doesn't sound like we hit too many last night.
Yeah, because you didn't call Joey Votto, you bastard. We only called 2 yesterday, guys. Okay, this is my favorite. The 2 that we called were Brick JB with Adam Duvall. He's up to 21, and I guess calling Adam Duvall isn't crazy anymore because whatever. But also Turf Ferguson called Jose Siri. He's up to 28. You should get like 5 for making that call. So that's it. So we are still at 1193. We are so close to our 1200 goal. Joe still leads. I did not hit one yesterday, so I have 32, tied with Randy. Go Cards right there at 31. Got a bunch at 30 with Lawnmower Man 4.4, Smalls and Helpless in Miami. Derek from Texas, Ack, D. Gordon Liddy and are tied at 29. Turf Ferguson at 28. Mike Mayer, an embarrassing 27. Wonky Penguin, a fantastic 26. Catbox 24. Raucous Tiger 23 and the Clown Prince 23. So today's the day, guys. We are going over 1200 guaranteed. They said it couldn't be done. Everybody was against us. We managed to do it.
The lead is there for the taking right now. Dan Harris is still just 1 behind Joe Pizzapia. Moving on to DFS, we have an 11-game slate. A lot of these pitchers are really interesting to me, especially Alek Manoah as usual. Where do you start with, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the most expensive pitcher on both sides is Brandon Woodruff going up against the Cardinals. I don't know how you want to do anything against the Cardinals right now because they're so hot. He's 10-2 on FanDuel, 10-4 on DK. Obviously a good cash arm. Gossman was moved up, I think, Tuma. I didn't think he was supposed to start today, but I think they moved him up, so he is starting today. He is 9,900 against the Padres and 10-1 on DraftKings. He hasn't been that great lately, Brendan, so I think I'm staying away from him, but I don't mind going after Manoah. He is against, Rasmussen, who's been also fantastic, 9,600 on FanDuel, 95 on DK. Julio Urias against Colorado, 9,000 and 9,900, but they're in Colorado, so not exactly where you want to go. So you can use those guys in cash. I will probably wind up going with Woodruff just to be safe. And if you want to go for a secondary arm or a GPP arm, Jordan Montgomery, I think he had 12 strikeouts on his last start against Texas, 8,800 on FanDuel, 83 on DK, and Jose Urquidy against our guy, Packy Naughton and the Angels, 8,700 on FanDuel and 9,000 on DK.
I, for one, am upset that Packy Naughton didn't make the list of potential usable DFS arms. A couple game stacks, the Brewers against Jake Woodford of the Cardinals, and the Phillies and Orioles, because both teams are starting, quote, TBD tonight. So we don't know who's pitching in those games, but that probably means it's either bullpen game or not anyone good. So you can go with those teams as well. But if you want some specific lineup builders, you can use
Willy Adames, who's going up against Woodford, 2,800 on FanDuel, 3,800 on DraftKings. Yuli Gurriel against, again, Packy Naughton, of course, 3,000 on FanDuel, 4,100 on DraftKings. Joey Gallo, who apparently just hits all the home runs that I probably would have guessed he was more like 30. He's going up against Dane Dunning, 3,300, on FanDuel, 4,000 on DraftKings. And JT Realmuto against TBD in Baltimore, doesn't matter, 3,300 on FanDuel and 4,100 on DraftKings.
Time is running out, as we mentioned, to catch Joe Pisapia in the home run leaderboards. So Dan, you are going with who to try to make up ground?
I'm going chalky. I'm going to Colorado. If Joe's going to pick Bryce Harper every time, I've got to go to Colorado. And I'm going with Max Muncy against Antonio Senzatella. Not that bad. My thought process, obviously, is number one, Muncy hit one for me over the weekend. I like Corey Seager, but I need him to do well in my season-long league, so I don't want to jinx it there. So I'm going with Muncy here to hit a homer, to tie me up with Joey P, and hopefully vault me eventually into a place where I can get into the lead finally.
Make sure everyone in the Peanuts and the Cracker Jacks puts their home run calls in Discord, in the Fantasy Pros Discord. Make sure you are using the baseball channels in there. If you guys want to talk all things baseball, fantasy baseball, Dan, Joe, Mike, and I are in there to talk. Before we close, I just want to add one more note, a really cool story. Anthony Gose, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Gose.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
He was a former position player. He appeared in a big league game for the first time since 2016 last night, and he converted to a pitcher, and he was throwing 100 miles per hour for the Cleveland Indians. Very cool story to see.
That is awesome. I didn't realize that. And I remember Ghost as a position player. Yes. And that's why I think you're correct. By the way, I'm going to throw one very quick thing out, is that this show, when we first started September, I asked Tuma, and I turned it over to Tuma, and I said, Brendan, we can do this show as often as you want. If you want to do it every day, we will find a way to do it every day. If you want to do it 3 times a week, like my understanding is most other fantasy baseball podcasts are down to 3 times a week, 2 times a week. And you said, okay, I'm going to think it over. I'm going to think it over. And you, my friend, have kept this going every day, other than when, you've been out of town or something like that, every single day. So if you enjoy this show, number one, thank Brendan, because he is the only reason that we decided to keep it going every single day right now. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/FantasyProsMLB, or leave a review for the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And give Tuma a little shout out, because this is basically, he overtook the show and it became his baby. So well done.
We simply needed more rookies and prospect talk in the show, which is why I felt like I had to do it. But yes, thank you for that, Dan. And seriously, to all the Peanuts and the Cracker Jacks, reach out to us. Keep letting us know how you're doing in your leagues. I'm finding that really interesting on Twitter when people say, "Oh, I made it to the championship," etc. I love that. There was the pause, because we are going to end the show. For Dan Harris, this has been Brendan Tuma. We will see you tomorrow on Wednesday.